So thank you very much for this opportunity that we have again to say something about our work. This presentation, as mentioned already, will be focusing on EUPID. We had a couple of weeks ago, again, this opportunity to present to you the European Rare Disease Platform, whose main aim is to make rare disease registry data searchable and findable. And as we explained last time, this is largely achieved through the European Rare Disease Infrastructure, ERDRI. And next slide, please, Michael. And last time we detailed the main tools of ERDRI, the European Directory of Registries, ERDRI-DOR, and the Central Metadata Repository, ERDRI MDR as we call it. And in less detail, the pseudonymization tool, EUPID, offered to the ERDRI participating registries in the EUPID platform in collaboration with the Austrian Institute of Technology that basically fathered this tool and that we present today jointly together with Mikael from the AIT. And Mikael will present more the technical aspects in detail. Next slide, please. So I explained this last time already, strictly related to the access to ERDRI. So EUPID is offered through ERDRI, so you need to know how to access ERDRI in order to access EUPID. So this is a slide showing the user cases workflow. Basically, we have three types of users. The first one is an identified user who can only see a limited number of information, can access ERDRI-DOR and ERDRI-MDR with limited number of information. Then we have the user case reader who can read all information, but this has to be an authenticated user through EU login. Should this user, who's a reader, decides to become a contributor, that is to contribute to insert data in ERDRI-DOR, ERDRI-MDR, and use EUPID, this person needs to become a verified user. And I will show you, we have a verification form and that I will show you in the next slide. But this is the case of the authenticated user who can use, first can input data in ERDRI-DOR, then complete the data of the metadata of his or her registry in the metadata repository. And then this person, this registry is ready to use EUPID. Not necessarily the same person who did the input in the first two tools, and this I will explain a bit later as well. So let me show you now the verification form in the next slide. This is the verification form. Here we ask a few details about who the user is and which registry they represent. And like I said, it doesn't have to be the same person, so we don't know this new person maybe who was to use the EUPID on behalf of a registry, but we can match the information. And usually we ask also the owner of the registry, if that's okay. So next slide, please. A few generalities about EUPID. We use EUPID we offer EUPID in order to make data interoperable, and this is a huge opportunity to be able to share data, also using this pseudonymization in order to make interoperability more generally between the registries. So, as I mentioned earlier, EUPID can be used through a dedicated JRC license by the rare disease registries who join the EURD platform. That is, they input their data first in ERDRI-DOR and ERDRI-MDR. And EUPID ensures prevention or duplication, registration of patients. It provides distinct new pseudonyms for patients in different contexts. And finally, it also preserves the possibility for re-identification as we talk about pseudonymization and not anonymization by a third trusted party. Next slide. Now I just want to say we have three possible ways of using EUPID. The first one is a single patient pseudonymization. I will show you a few screens of the demo that we have, how also the prevention of the doubles is ensured in the next slides. So this single patient pseudonymization is done directly on the ERN website, a dedicated web page where you can do this. And then we have the bulk patient pseudonymization. So instead of going one by one, obviously, if the registry has already hundreds of patients or thousands of patients, the bulk way can be done always through the portal, the web portal of ERN, through a dedicated software that allows the registries to create multiple pseudonyms in one go. The software will be downloadable from ERN, and it just needs a CSV file as an input, actually. So the third way, for which Mikael will talk after this, is an ERN-mediated link between the registry and the EUPID services. And this is ensured with a consumer ID that will be matched with the registry and the users in ERN. So Mikael will detail this later on. Next slide, which basically shows exactly the same thing as I have just said. The question is, you're a verified user. How do you want to provide the patient's information for pseudonymization? Manually, if it's only one at a time, then you just obtain the pseudonym through the web page in ERN. If you want to do many at a time, you obtain the pseudonym through this bulk pseudonymization software. And if you want to do it directly from your registry software, you just need to you do this via ERN managed consumer delegation and directly to EUPID services. So a detailed guide we are working on will be issued soon, and to distribute to all of you on this the details all these cases. The next screens, please, Mikael. Is about the EUPID demo. Here we see I had the links in the previous slide, next to previous slide, and here you can choose. We created two different contexts, as we call them, demo 1 and demo 2, and here you can try to see what happens if you register a patient, the same patient in demo 1, demo 2, and what kind of pseudonyms you get and what kind of a notice you get from the system. So here we have, it's not very visible, but here what you see is just the fields actually that you're asked to put is first name, last name, and date of birth. And the next slide. Oh, sorry, I was talking without passing to the next slide. Here. So this is what you have as the fields: the first name, last name, and the date of birth. The next slide, please. And here you see that if you put a name, John Smith, born on that date, you get alphanumerical pseudonym. Next slide. If you try the previous, Mikael, So if you try to do the same pseudonymization with changing slightly the name or the date of birth, it sounds like, you know, John Smith. It tells you that this. Oh, sorry. It's not a different. It's not a slightly the same. It's exactly the same. This one. So it just tells you the patient has already been registered in this context before. So it gives you the already existing pseudonym. Next case. Next slide. It will be the case where we have a phonetic match or typing errors. If you miss a letter or if you put another letter, it just identifies that it's almost the same, and it tells you that the patient with similar identification data was previously registered, and it asks you to check for typing errors, and you can confirm whether these typing errors are not typing errors or it's just another patient. Next slide, which may be the last, I think. So if it's a full match, it tells you that it's the same patient, but in a different context. Here, it tells you that the patient has been registered in a different context before, and a new pseudonym is proposed in this case. But it just tells you that it's somewhere in another context. Obviously, now one can wonder what happens then. You know, we are now working together with the AIT on merging data from different contexts. This will be the data transition and data linkage service. And as I mentioned before, this is the feature, quite special feature of EUPID is also the re-identification of the patients by trusted third parties. So I believe that was the last one, Michael? Yeah, so now I pass the word to Michael.
Thanks very much, Andre. Yes,
thank you.
This was the last slide of you. I want to present the things related to re-identification or to data transition and such things, because these are features of the EUPID services are extended features, and today I want to focus on what you have to do, how you can gain access and achieve to do your patient registration out of your rare disease registry utilizing the EUPID services. And I want to explain how you can consume the EUPID services to do this patient registration, and all the other features we can take care in the later, let's say, presentation, whatever. So let's start again with the options to consume the EUPID services. Thank you, Andre. You already presented the pseudonymization tool that is provided by you on ERDRI. This is a graphic user interface. Then there is a Java-based EUPID client for patient registration is as well provided as a standalone application by JRC. And what I want to present now is the opportunity to have interoperability between the rare disease registry and the EUPID services by consuming the EUPID services API. This is provided by AID as an interoperability package. Now, what does such an interoperability package include? First of all, manuals for utilizing the services. This is the EUPID consumer specification. Then you gain access to a EUPID trial services instance where you can do your development for the interface on your side, on the side of the rare disease registry. Then this implementation will be approved. That means that we will do in common with you a check whether the implementation you did is fine. We will do a validation check here, and if this was successful, we will gain access to the productive EUPID services that your rare disease registry can access the EUPID services, and you can embed the patient registration based on the EUPID service in your rare disease registry. And what is included as well is 1 year of maintenance of the EUPID services interfaces. Now, let's have a look on this illustration where you can see how things are working together. let's start here at the EUPID services. It's important that the first step is that you, as a rare disease registry, receive something called a EUPID consumer ID. This is an ID for your rare disease instance, and you will hand over this ID and enter this ID during the registration process in ERN. This now brings together your rare disease registry with the EUPID services, and we can see this loop over here. Can you see my mouse cursor? No?
Yes.
You can. Yes. Thanks very much. This is important, therefore we can have this loop over here, and there will be a rare disease register specific configuration then be sent to the EUPID services. So after doing the registration of your rare disease registry, the next step is that the users of the rare disease registries are registered as well in ERN. This is related to this EUPID consumer ID because these are users coming out of the rare disease registry and will be then subsequently be sent in the call as so-called delegated users directly to the EUPID services. Therefore, this works. These users have to be registered here, and after creating a EUPID context, this is optional because we could use an already existing EUPID context where we assign these users, where we assign these users to. This configuration, the users, the EUPID context, if we created a new one, and the assignment of the users that are related to the rare disease registry, all this information is sent to the EUPID Services Management API by the ERN platform and is then configured in the EUPID services. This allows then the rare disease registry to establish this interoperability to the EUPID services and do a patient registration specific to a delegated user. This means that all those processes of pseudonymization, there is a initialization process and the registration process. These processes are related to these processes are user specific. This is not done in the context of the rare disease registry. This is done in the context of one of the users that is currently logged into the rare disease registry. So again, the first steps from 1 to 5, these steps are done by ERN. This is specified if there is something to do, like the rare disease registration and entering users, whatever. All those things are specified in the ERN user access guide. This is provided by JRC, and all the other things that have to be done, have to be done by the rare disease registries on their own. This is the patient registration call on the process. So, as already mentioned, there is an EUPID services consumer specification. There is all information provided there in this document that is needed to consume functionalities provided by the EUPID service API, in particular for doing a patient registration and pseudonymization. So this EUPID services API consists of main parts. One of the main parts is this pseudonymization part, and the other is the management part in the EUPID domain rare disease. This is owned by JRC. Therefore, this EUPID domain rare disease is restricted to JRC. That means that only JRC can do the management of the EUPID domain rare disease. So you won't have, as a rare disease registry, you won't have access to the management endpoints and section of the EUPID services API. What is interesting for you is the pseudonymization part, and there are two calls. The first call is an initialization call. Within this call, you will retrieve all this information you need. This is a user-specific configuration. This you can get back what are the contexts a user can do a patient registration within. And then you get all the parameters that are specified in such a context and get all the information you have then in the subsequent call, in the registration call, to provide to the EUPID service during the registration. That means we have the second call here. This is the registration call. Here we can put together all this information. We have to put together accordingly to the initialization information, and we provide the information of the patient, the first name, last name, date of birth, whatever, in a hashed and encrypted manner, and send this in a context-specific way to the EUPID services, and then we will get back a context-specific pseudonym or a status code, which tells us what we have to do if there is something like we found this patient already, we found a similar patient, whatever. This is all specified in the EUPID consumer specification. So the initial steps are, after gaining the interoperability package, you have to provide a client application name for registration. This is a registration within the EUPID services infrastructure. This is, yes, the name of your rare disease registry instance. Then we need a certificate that is providing a public key. This is needed for doing a client authentication or authorization. We will see that in the next slide. First of all, you have to implement the certificate-based authentication within your rare disease registry. That means you will do that against something called Azure Active Directory authorization endpoint, and you will then be provided a token, and with this token you can then access the EUPID services. This is all specified within the EUPID consumer specification and other documents you will be provided with. So the next step is you have to implement the EUPID services calls. These are the calls for the initialization and for the registration. And this pseudonymization process looks like this. If we start, first of all, we retrieve available context and the configuration. So this is the initialization call, and I won't go in depth here. I just want to give you an imagination how such things are specified in the EUPID consumer specification and what you have to do now. So this is the endpoint, how it is called. This is just the header. What is important here is that as query parameters, you have to specify in the parameter user ID a so-called delegated user. This is a globally unique identifier for your user in your system, and for one and the same user, this has to be unique, and this must not change. This is very, very important. Therefore, we know not who is the user in person, but we can then go back to you if there's a need to do so and get out what was the real name of the user, whatever. Yes, this is the response of the initialization call. This is much more long. Of course, it's just a screenshot out of the consumer specification. This starts like this, and you will get back all the information. What is the context ID, the context name, a label, and all those information you will get back from the EUPID services, and you can display this information, and you will know what you have to ask the user. That means there is specified this context requires as mandatory parameters a first name, last name, a date of birth, and probably then there are some optional parameters as well. So you have to use this information within the implementation of your graphic user interface by embedding the patient registration within your rare disease registry, and you have to follow what is coming back here. This is a specification, and you have to display it accordingly what is configured here in the EUPID context. So the next is you will prepare all the information that is needed to do the registration. Then you have to collect the identification data, first name, last name, date of birth, and you have to hash this data. This is all specified in the consumer specification. And if you want to use something that was mentioned before by Andy, if you want to use a feature like re-identification, you have to do an encryption of the data as well. So there's an opportunity that there's a decryption possible by a trusted third party if there's a need to do a re-identification of a patient. This is not related to us, this is related to a trusted third party. So then the next, after preparing all those identification data, the next is that you are going to call the registration endpoint. This is specified here. It is a post call to the EUPID Services API. Again, you have to provide the user ID. This is the globally unique identifier of the delegated user of your system. This is the identifier that was provided in ERN by registering all the users of your rare disease registry. That's important. You are providing such identifiers in ERN. These identifiers are then sent to the EUPID services in the configuration call to the management endpoint. Therefore, the EUPID services know these are users of the system of the rare disease with having the consumer ID, let's say, and then these users will also be assigned to context. This means if you are then going to call the EUPID services out of your system, you are providing a token. This token holds, of course, a client ID, and based on this client ID, so you don't have to provide a consumer ID, you are sending just the token that was created by an identity provider service. You are just sending this token, and based on this token and this information, we know who are you and who is your user. So your user, not in a personal way, but based on this, because this was a user of your system that was specified for you and the contexts that are assigned to this user. So this is then the body. So you need in the post of the registration, you need a body, and you will here provide all those data that's necessary. This is specified first of all by the initialization call, and then this data is sent here in arrays, whatever. So these are this data that is hashed, and if you are using the re-identification feature, you have to send some encrypted data as well. Well, then the next step is that you get the response. You get a response code from the EUPID services, and you have to handle this response code. If you got something called 200, then the patient registration was done, nothing else has to be done, but there are a lot of other response codes that could be related to that. It is not really clear, is this one and the same patient? Is this patient already available? We do a lot of checks within the EUPID service, so we try to get out spelling errors, whatever, typing errors, whatever, and then we are asking for clarification, and this is specified what you have to do, and this is checked on in the verification process. So this has to be implemented, and if you are asked for clarification, you have to change things accordingly and call the registration again, and somehow you will then get out and you will have a EUPID services-based context-specific pseudonym related to the context that is somehow associated to your rare disease registry, and that's it.